Well, here they are. A couple of old books, two more over here, but today I thought I'd show you these old books, and I mean old. Let me show you, you can see it's, well, maybe you can't see. Oh yeah, sure, here we go. A.E. Waters, that is my grandfather, Arthur Edward. Salvation Army crest on the front, and it is a very old Bible. A few marks in here clearly of his, but what I found interesting was in the front, this picture of Adjutant and Mrs. Kendall. Now, I've asked all over the place, anybody ever heard of the Kendalls, folks who have been around a long time? My dad told me that these were, this man in particular was kind of a spiritual father to my grandfather. So you have to remember how far this goes back. So my dad actually left a note in this Bible, which is helpful to us. He did a celebration of what was then Hamilton Temple, now Meadowlands Corps. So April 14th and 15th. I think it really was, or was it the 21st? My mom confirmed, 2002. And he notes that it was 1910 when a 23-year-old Arthur Edward arrived from England, settling in Hamilton. He actually lived with Wendy's great-grandparents initially. They were the custodians, and Sam Marriott was the Corps secretary and eventually backed him to go to college. He had been converted in the Gillingham Corps in England. I should put this down because I'm shaking too much. But got involved at the Hamilton Citadel Corps, then known, and 28 Rebecca Street. Became a Sunday school teacher, songster, Corps Sergeant Major, and in 1917, at age 29, entered the training college. Eventually, my folks came as the Corps officers here. Anyway, we were visiting with Gordon and Ada Moyles, and Gordon actually knew of the Kendalls, knew of the fact that they were British officers. I talked about the fact that the first 40 years of the Salvation Army, in Canada in particular, were led by British officers because you couldn't trust those Canadians. Anyway, eventually my grandfather became Major Arthur Edward Waters. He actually was Senior Major Arthur Waters, and this Bible was presented to him. You'll see it's marked as the Patriarch. He was at Queen's University, the chaplain to theology students. This is pictures pasted into the front of the Bible, and it is actually the grave marker for my grandfather. If I can get this to focus, there we go. There is his birth date and date of death, 1887, 1967, Waters. And inside, fascinating, I take it my grandmother did this too, was a newspaper article. I think this would be out of the Kingston Whig, I think it was called. Cliff Bowring, he was one of the great ones. Cliff was a journalist covering the courts. My grandfather worked in the courts, and so you can actually read it. It was always a privilege to meet a man whose every thought and act is devoted to helping others. And he goes on to talk about the fact that ever since World War I, along with so many others, have been a great admirer of wonderful work carried out around the world by the Salvation Army, and then talked about him. Talked about the fact that I remember Major Waters best from the period years ago when I was a reporter covering court sessions. Day after day, he sat in the court while the constant parade of human misery and human failures passed by, as indeed it does still today. Amen. I wish I had a record of the number of times he intervened to help others from his own resources, and he would be making pennies. Those who stood before the bar of justice. How many times did the courts rely on his judgment, his warm generosity, and his sincerity in deciding upon a lighter sentence, or to some, none at all? Anyway, I thought that was a fascinating little tribute. There he is, Grandpa Waters. I was quite young when he died, and so I don't have a lot of memories. Those are the ones I do. He wasn't well. So there's two books of his. RSV, this is the gift. And then his own Bible. And you'll see it's a little worse for wear, and some of his markings inside. I really treasure these kinds of things. The other little book I've talked about before is this little Salvation song book that was in my dad's keeping. And I'm learning a little bit more about that. The other thing, well, I've never noticed the date on this for some reason. 1928, the Staff Review. This is actually an IHQ production. And it begins with a note from the General. Now, just think about the date, 1928, the year before they removed Bramwell as the General. And anyway, it's quite fascinating. There's the date on this one, January 1928. You wonder if he was that ill, who actually wrote this. Did he write it or not? I don't know. I'm going to show him to Gordon Moyles, and I'm sure he can share some other information. I'm currently reading a book he wrote on Evangeline Booth, and it fits into some of the times of this book in particular. So I'm looking forward to learn a bit more. Anyway, that's for today. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy the video.